So we are back for another acceptable casualties battle report. Today we have 1,500 points of Strelkovy Battalion taking on 1,500 points of SS Totenkopf, playing Surrounded. So we'll be back in a second to go over the lists and deployment. So here we have our 1,500 points of Strelkovy Battalion, just Red Army, so it's going to be confident trained. Down here we have our 1IC, 2IC, and Commissar with the 245mm cannons. I haven't decided where I'm going to put those yet. Up here we have two identical Strelkovy mobs with the Maxim machine gun, Commissar. They have two anti-tank rifles attached to them and a flamethrower in each group. Over here we have our small mortar team with Observer. We have our 31M Katyushas with Observer, and back there we have our IL-2 Sturmovik, just the basic one with not priority, limited, so 5 dice. So that's 1,500 points here for our Strelkovy Battalion, and we'll be back in a second for the SS Totenkopf. So here we have our 1,500 points of SS Panzergrenadierkampfgruppe. It's going to be the SS Totenkopf. Down here we have our 1IC and 2IC and half tracks. We have 2 platoons of grenadiers in their half tracks. Do they have anything special with them, like the Fausts or anything?
No, they're just bare bone.
Okay, bare bone. Down here we have 2 of the 2cm quad flak tracks, 2 flamer half tracks. We have 5 of the Panzer IVs. These are the Biomirs, right?
Yeah.
Okay, with Biomir. Up here we have 1 Tiger, and what was his skill? Tiger Ace?
2 up Stormtrooper.
2 up Stormtrooper, and then back here we have our Nebelwerfers with the Observer. Overall, 1,500 points. Be back in a second for deployment, playing Surrounded. So we are back for deployment. I will go over the Soviets first. Down here we have our first objective and our second objective. Well, these are actually Vince's objectives, not really mine. We decided to set up our first Strelkovy company down here along the hedges right there and string them up along the road right over here with our MG and our 45mm kind of covering this open area over here. Our second Strelkovy company over there, we place them down and just bubble wrap that objective with some firepower kind of covering this bridge and the open area over here, and then some anti-tank rifles and some of our riflemen kind of covering this big open patch coming around over here. We put our mortar team in the middle over there, and we decided to keep our Katyushas in immediate ambush, and we broke them out in the middle here, facing that direction to hopefully do a couple casualties before these guys make their push across the bridge, across the fields. For Vin, he lined up his Nebelwerfers down here with his Observer up on the hill. 1 platoon of the half tracks and the flame wagons, and this is the 1IC or 2IC?
That would be 1IC.
And,
2IC's up here.
Okay, and the 1IC, you're all right here. Over here we have the flak tracks, the 2IC, and another group of those half tracks down there, going to make their way probably across the bridge over there. On this side of the table, Vin has Biomir and his 5 Panzer IVs over here, and down here he has his just Tiger, Lone Tiger, probably still gonna just do some damage on the side of the table. But yeah, that's deployment over here. We will be back in a second for SS Totenkopf, turn 1. So we are back for the top of turn 1 for the Totenkopf. Pretty much just a lot of positioning here. The half-track blob that was over there, they pushed up behind this forest here to kind of take cover. Nebelwerfers obviously didn't move anywhere. Up here, the platoon flat tracks, the 2IC, and the other half-track platoon, they pushed up over here. And then on this side, Biomir moved up to the little plaza there in front of the church, and the Tiger swung up on this side. As far as the shooting phase goes, the Tiger went at the double. I think just get in position to steamroll that entire flank because I don't have anything over there that can really answer him. Biomir up here, like I said, they just moved up, fired a couple of shots in the Katyushas, and they were able to kill the commander of that Katyusha group, and then they failed their Stormtrooper move to get a little bit closer. Like I said, over here, they just moved up behind here, didn't really shoot anything. Up over here, the flat tracks and those half tracks dumped a bunch of shots into this blob over here, and they were able to, well, with the help of the Nebelwerfers, they were able to pin and kill one base, and then they tried to assault afterwards, and Vin got beat back with 5 hits from the return fire, and then one of the half tracks bogged down on the hedges right there, and then they were also pinned, like I said, and the back one over there, they got a bail. So, that was thwarted for this turn, but I don't think we're going to be able to do that for another turn. So we'll be back in a second for the bottom of turn 1 for the Strelkovy. So we are back for the bottom of turn 2 for the Strelkovies. Pretty decent turn for us, really nothing game-changing. Down here, well, actually, let me start over here. We had our plane come in with 2 for air support. I think I rolled 4 6s and a 5 to get them on, so they were pretty excited about getting on the table and trying to blow something up. Down here for movement, obviously nobody moved. Everybody just stayed dug in. These guys stayed on the ground over here. For shooting, our Kaitushas, they tried to fire at this half-track blob, just sitting there looking so good. We had the observer down here, so he's able to kind of get a view, and we needed 1 4 on 3 dice, and I think we rolled a 1 2 and a 3, so that was a blown opportunity there. That did hurt. Up here, we fired our mortars, the solid shot over here at Bymir. We ended up getting 2 bales on those 2 front row tanks over there. So that actually was pretty decent, forced them to get back in later. We didn't really have anything else to shoot at those guys. But then down over here, that half-track group, we were able to open up a bunch of rifle fire, machine gun fire, and a couple shots from that cannon, and we were able to blow up the one that was on the bridge, but Vin made 2 of his guys, the survivor rolls, they passed. But since one of the half-tracks blew up, Vin had to do that motivation roll to keep them on the table, and they ended up failing that. So they're back over here, but obviously on Vin's turn, they can come back in. They were pinned, so we're just playing it like they came off the table and to come back on unpinned. I don't know if that's how the rule plays. We couldn't really find anything in the book about it. So, like I said, next turn for Finn, they're just going to automatically come back in from the table edge wherever he wants them. But that was the bottom of turn 1 for the Strelkovies. Decent turn. We'll be back in a second for Totenkopf turn 2. So we are back for top of turn 2 for the Totenkopf, and this was just an absolute bloodbath. But before we get into the turn, I forgot to say down here last turn, I had that plane come in for me, and he took out 2 of the Nebelwerfers, but let's get back to the good stuff. So moving, the flame wagons and the 1 platoon of half-tracks all swung around over here and positioned themselves over to there. The other platoon of half-tracks, the 3 remaining ones, came back in and positioned themselves on the road to maybe make a push next turn. The flak tracks moved up to the river, and then the 2IC pushed over there. On this side of the table, Bymir and 5 of those tanks pushed up on that flank, and down here, the Tiger pushed up over here. So we'll start down here. Shooting, everybody pretty much just fired a bunch of shots. Well, not everybody. The Tiger fired, 2 shots? I think he killed 1 guy, and then ended up getting up on the hedgerow right there and assaulted and took out a pretty decent little chunk of bases over here, but then he bogged on the consolidation, so he's hung up on the hedges right there. Up over here, Bymir fired 5 shots and machine gun shots, right? Yeah, into the guys over here. I don't think they got a kill off the shooting, but then in close combat, they rolled in. They killed a couple bases. We ended up getting 1 bale with our anti-tank rifle on one of the tanks. And then in close combat, we ended up blowing one of them up with the anti-tank rifles in the second round of close combat. And then we got another bale on another one with just regular infantry teams. So we took out 3 of the tanks. Vin failed his motivation, so Bymir had to break back off. And he ended up passing his motivation to stay on the table after the 3 casualties. So kind of happy with that result over there. Up here with the shooting, the flak tracks, like I said, just fired a bunch of shots in there, made a couple saves. Nothing really exciting happened. And then down here, the flame wagons rolled up. They had 6 flamer shots. I think they peeled off 4 bases. The guys that were, previously lined up along the hedgerows right down there. And then the half tracks pushed up over to here. And if you take a look back, that used to be a full Strelkovy mob there, because I think Vin killed 16 bases or something like that in close combat. It was just a bloody affair. I mean, we were both passing our motivation, coming back in, and then, like I said, just peeling guys off 2 or 3 every time. Vin lost a bunch of half tracks, had to peel back off because he lost the combat, and I think he has the sergeant left and one of the machine gun teams left in that half track there. He passed his motivation to stay on, but they're definitely a depleted unit, but so am I. So this table right here, this objective at least, is up for grabs right now. So we'll be back for bottom of turn 2 for the Soviets, and hopefully we can regain a little bit of control on this side of the table, or it's probably going to be lights out for us in about a turn. So we are back for the bottom of Strelkovy turn 2. Decent turn for us. We had the plane come in down here. I fired a couple shots off the Nebelwerfers. We only had one, so we had to reroll our successes, and we did, but Vin passed his save, so no luck down there. Over here, the Strelkovy blob, at least not much of a blob anymore, what's left of it. We failed to get unpinned, and then we also failed to dig in. So they're just kind of hanging out there right now. Not too good for us. Over here, for the shooting phase, like I said, they didn't move neither of the mortars. For shooting, we had a couple cannon shots going down there to the from the 45 millimeter onto the flak tracks, and we were able to bail one of them. Then we dumped a bunch of machine gun fire into them as well, but nothing came of that. We had 2 rifles over here. We had our flamethrower that was there, a couple SMGs, the 45 mil, and the anti-tank team all fired into the flame track unit right here. We were able to blow one up. We were able to bail another, and then we were able to pin the unit down. So pretty decent shooting from that side of the table for that. Over here, we didn't really get a chance to fire anything from these guys because obviously we can't do any damage to the front of those tanks. But our mortars fired 12 shots down there. We got like 7 or 8 hits, and Vin made all of his saves, so we weren't able to get another bail on those guys. Katyusha's over here. They fired down into the corner over here to try to take out those flag tracks, and we ranged in and hit, but Vin made both of his top armor saves, ended up keeping those guys on the table a little bit longer. So overall, bottom turn 2, pretty decent for us. Really wish we would have gotten those guys dug in and unpinned, but maybe next turn if they're still alive. So I'll be back in a second for top 3 for the Totenkopf. So we are back for the top of turn 3 for the Totenkopf. Pretty good turn for Vin. Down here in the movement phase, he failed to unpin the Nebelwerfers. Over here, the flame track moved up. The Tiger moved up to there from down here. And the 1IC and one of the remaining half tracks moved up over there. On this flank, the flat track stayed still, and the other half track platoon, they moved up to the fence line over there. Shooting phase, not a lot of wounds done in shooting down here. I think they killed 2 guys down here with machine gun fire from a couple of the tanks on that side. Bymir and the one tank that was left over there, they fired a couple shots in as well, but I don't think they peeled anybody off. And the half tracks over here and the flak tracks, I think they got 1 casualty on the shooting phase with like almost 20 shots, over 20 shots between the 2 units. So nothing as far as shooting phase really did much damage, but in assaults, Vin assaulted over there with the half tracks, got in. I think he killed 1 guy, and then he ended up getting a bog. And then on the counterattack, I hit like a whole bunch of times, and I was able to blow up 2 of the half tracks, and then capture one of them because they got bogged on the hedgerow over there. So that unit got wiped out. On this side, Bymir and the 1 remaining Panzer IV, they went in and assaulted. They ground up a couple guys on that side, and then I was able to get a bail on the 1 tank right down here, but then I ended up failing my motivation because of the amount of casualties I took. Both my commissars died in combat, so I couldn't use the commissar roll. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give the 1IC a shot here, and I ended up rolling a 2. So that whole platoon on that side of the table with the 1IC just got pulled off. So all that's left over there is the mortars and the 2IC. Down here, we ended up taking out one of the half tracks when it came into assault over the hedges with our defensive fire from the 45 millimeter. So that went pretty good. Assaults down here. Vin moved up with that Tiger, failed to hit, but I just decided to retreat because there's nothing I can do on that side as far as hitting them goes. So that's what we're looking at here for top of turn 3 for the Totenkopf. I don't know if we're going to be able to answer here, but we'll give it our best shot. So we'll be back in a second for bottom 3 for Strelkovy. So we are back for the bottom of turn 3 for the Strelkovy. Decent turn for us. Movement phase, we were able to unpin these guys down here, and we just kind of shimmied them around to get a little more coverage around that objective. We had our plane come in up there, and over here, we really didn't move anybody except for the flamethrower. So shooting phase, we moved the flamethrower over. We ended up getting 2 hits, but we failed both of our firepower tests, so we weren't able to force another bail test or anything like that for those guys. We fired 12 solid shots into the tanks over here, and we were able to get a bunch of hits. Vin ended up failing 2 of his saves, and we failed both 3 up firepower, so that kind of really didn't go our way down there. Shooting down here, we had the 45 millimeter and the anti-tank rifle fire down here into the 1IC. We were able to blow up, the 1IC and the track. So the flame track, we ended up missing both shots, and then the 3 cannon shots we fired into the 1IC and that half track, we blew it up. Vin passed his 5-up save, but then we dropped the Katusha template on top of him, and we were able to blow him up. There was another guy over here that survived last turn's explosion in that half track. We fired a bunch of shots at him from some of our rifle teams, and they missed, but then we assaulted. And I think it was, 2.5 rounds?
2.5 rounds?
2.5 rounds of everybody missing every attack, and then finally we were able to kill him. So that kind of happened on this side. So, both sides are whittled down pretty bad right now, but I think Vin's going to have the advantage going into turn 4. I don't know if I have enough left on the table to really take those tanks out. But, we'll have to just wait and see. So we'll be back in a second for top of turn 4 for Totenkopf. So we're back here for the top of turn 4. Pretty good turn for the Germans. Pretty good turn for me, too, considering how bad it could have went. So down here, the Nebelwerfer was able to unpin and the movement phase. 2IC stayed still. The flak track Vin kind of forgot about, so that was kind of nice. Down here, the flame wagon got hung up on the hedges there, and he is bogged down, but he was still able to be in firing range, and he took out one of the, I think it was the commissar with the flamethrower. The Tiger ended up staying put and, rolled up a little bit, and then Vin fired a bunch of shots into the, 2 shots into the Kaitushas, and I failed both my saves, so Vin blew up them. So that's 1 platoon that's down for me. Up here, Bymir and one of the Panzer IVs, they swung around and they fired a bunch of shots into the mortar teams. They didn't kill anybody except for the sergeant, I think, that I had. Yeah, the one sergeant, he died. And then an assault, Vin rolled in, missed his first series of attacks. I swung back after my tank terror motivation. I was able to bail out Bymir. Then Vin failed another attack with him, and then I failed my motivation, so I had to peel back off. So right now, Bymir's just sitting there with 1 Panzer kind of watching him. So going into bottom of turn 4, I'm gonna have to move in there and kind of get near that objective with those mortar teams. And then hopefully I can blow some stuff up down here with that 45 and the plane. I don't know, it's gonna be tough, but we'll see what we can do. Bottom turn 4, Soviets coming up. So we are back for bottom of turn 4 for the Soviets. Literally, this took about a minute and a half. There really wasn't much going on over here. I ended up getting the plane in, and I missed. I kind of just spaced out those mortars to kind of get by the objective since I can't assault with them. And we fired 1 rifle shot into the rear armor, hoping to get a bail, and we missed. Down here, we fired our 45 millimeter, and we fired our anti-tank rifle, and we missed. So this was a lot of missing in a minute and a half. I'm a sad panda right now because I think this is where it all ends for the Soviets. We're gonna come back top of turn 5, and we're gonna watch some tanks roll over some commies. So we'll be back in a second. So we are back for top turn 5 for the Totenkopf. This is the death blow here. This was the end of it right now. So as far as movement phase goes, Vin wasn't able to unbog the half track over there. He moved the flak track up to the top of the bridge to get an angle to shoot some shots down here. He hit 3. I ended up saving 3, so I kind of lucked out on that end. The Tiger shot 4 machine gun shots into those guys. I failed 1 save with the anti-tank rifle that used to be there, and then I ended up making the other 3. So that worked out okay. Down here, not so much. Vin fired 8 machine gun shots with the 2 tanks, and I ended up failing 3 of the saves. And then he assaulted afterwards, and he killed 2 guys off the bat, which left my 2 IC and 1 mortar team. I was able to swing back. I bailed the tank. Vin passed his motivation, and then in the next 2 turns, he ended up killing 1 each turn to kind of break those guys, and that was the end of that. I have no 1 IC, no 2 IC. I have 1 platoon left on the table. That is game over. Win for the Totenkopf. We'll be back in a second to do the recap of this bloody mess. So we are back for the end of game recap. Vin, it's 2 wins in a row, man.
Yeah, Totenkopf.
Totenkopf, you shouldn't play anybody else than just them.
Yeah.
So we'll go back over how the game played out. I mean, there's not left on the table right now, but in the beginning we had a lot of models. So we ended up playing surrounded, obviously. So when you're playing surrounded with the Strelkovy, you really don't have a lot of options for positioning. It's kind of just throw a ton of guys out there, bubble wrap the objectives, and just wait for the inevitable, which is tanks just getting driven down your throat. So over there, I had like bubble wrap there. I wanted to use the forests and the hedges on that side over there to kind of give me some pretty clear fields of fire. There's a lot of open ground over here, so I figured if Vin would have went with the half tracks on this side, I'd at least gotten a couple volleys off if he would have went this way. And over here, there was a natural choke point across that bridge, and then Vin would have had to make bog checks if he would have went across the hedges there. So I kind of like taking that forest over there just because I would have gotten, I did end up getting a lot of shots for those half tracks and defensive fire and everything coming over that bridge, and that did pay off. That worked pretty well on that flank. Unfortunately, I failed that motivation, like turn 3, and I lost. Yeah. I think it was like still 11 or 12 bases that were still part of that company down there. It would have been great to have those guys, but unfortunately the dice gods didn't want it. So over here, the Katyushas that were down here, man, having them surrounded, it's just kind of tough to place them anywhere because you really only got access to half the table that you want to shoot with. And I ended up putting them in immediate ambush, so I would be able to pick the side that had more half tracks, which was the lineup that was over there. The Strelkovy blob down here, they didn't have much of a prayer. They had that tiger coming in over there. They ended up having the flame tracks and another whole platoon the half tracks come over there. I really just wanted to put these guys down here to just let them hold the line as long as possible, and then maybe just get lucky and capture that tiger if it would have bogged for some reason. Anything to just delay the inevitable. And I mean, they did okay holding the line, but just didn't have an answer for that tiger on that side down there. The mortars up top, against the tank list, I don't say they're worthless. I mean, you can get bales with them. They're pretty decent. They actually did okay this turn. I wouldn't say I'd expect the close combat results from them again, but overall they were okay. I like them on the table better for the anti-infantry. But they're really the only option that I have right now that's in that 100-point range as far as support units go. I do have some sappers, and I got some Ziz guns that I got in the mail. So I'm going to put those together, hopefully get them up and painted for a game next week or after that so we can get some little variation here for that like 100-point slot for support in this list. Maybe get a little more anti-tank, and then, anti-tank from the sappers and from the Ziz guns, and we'll see how that goes. But overall, I think Vin played it pretty well. I got a little worried down there, like I said, with the Tigers down here and his aggressive assaults with the half tracks all on the roadway. I think it worked out really well as far as keeping the pressure on. I mean, the half tracks up there didn't do that much, but they kept those guys occupied. Plus, I was getting hit on 2 flanks on that one, and then over here at Boromir, so I had to kind of split those forces from that Strelkovy mob. So overall, Vin's attack plan, I think, worked out pretty well. I mean, he was able to kind of push me in on both sides, and then down here with that tiger just rolling up that road, and I didn't have an answer for it. But I don't know, Vin, how do you feel that everything went for you?
Really good. I know. Till the.
Oh, hey, my dog's here.
But no, I would definitely say the half tracks that came in from over here were definitely my MVP. That was kind of the main focus of the attack, was taking that fork and just kind of putting all the pressure on there and trying to keep your top flank from coming down to assist.
Yeah, having the flame wagons down there, like I said, just having those guys occupied on the top. I mean, it was there was really nothing I could do as far as having an answer to it. But overall, good game. Vin, oh man, those damn Tigers. Yeah, you're on a streak now. I hate you. We'll be back to do it again next week. Thanks for watching.